I should have noticed the shift long before it became impossible to ignore. But when you love someone, you cling to the version of them you first fell in love with, not the one slowly drifting away from you. And maybe that is why this entire story began with one subtle moment, the night she laughed at a message on her phone longer than she laughed at anything I had said in months. That sound, light and careless, echoed in my chest in a way that told me something was changing, and not in my favor. At first, I convinced myself I was imagining it. Everyone has friends. Everyone jokes. Everyone laughs. But then the names started showing up more and more. The late-night conversations that she said were harmless. The friendly male coworkers she seemed to suddenly need to chat with all the time. The guys from her old friend group who somehow became daily parts of her life again. One name, then two, then three. And before I knew it, my wife seemed to be surrounding herself with men who acted like they had a chance with her. And instead of shutting them down, she let them orbit around her like she was the sun in their universe. I kept telling myself to be patient, not to jump to conclusions, not to look jealous or insecure. But the more I tried to stay calm, the more she leaned into it. She would get dressed a little nicer before hanging out with them. She would smile at her phone when one of them messaged her. She would playfully mention how funny or thoughtful they were, as if waiting to see how I reacted. Almost like she wanted to measure my jealousy against theirs, to see who wanted her more. That is when something started to rot inside my chest. It reached its peak on a Saturday night. She was getting ready for what she called a casual gathering. Nothing serious. Nothing to worry about. Just a few people from her group, mostly guys. She said it so casually, so carelessly, as if that detail should not matter. I asked if she wanted me to come. She hesitated, gave a soft little laugh, and said it was more of a friend's thing, and that I would probably be bored. The way she said it made me feel like I was already pushed out of a space that used to be ours. She came home that night glowing, smiling like she had been in her natural element, not like a married woman sharing her life with her husband. And that night, while she got ready for bed, I finally asked her what was going on. Not in anger. Not in accusation. Just a simple question: why did she need so many men around her all of a sudden? She rolled her eyes. She actually rolled her eyes at me. Then she laughed, told me I was overreacting, and said maybe I should be more confident instead of worrying like a jealous teenager. But her words only confirmed what I had already begun to feel. Confidence had nothing to do with this. It was about respect. About boundaries. About not entertaining attention from men who clearly wanted more from her. Yet she seemed to enjoy it. She seemed to feed on it. The real turning point came a week later. We were at a small gathering at a friend's house. She was sitting on the couch with two of her guy friends, laughing loudly, touching their arms casually, letting them lean into her like she was single. I was across the room, watching this uncomfortable scene unfold while pretending to stay involved in conversations. She barely even introduced me. She treated me like I was a distant acquaintance while giving these men all her energy. At some point, one of the guys said something like, "If he doesn't appreciate you, someone else definitely will." She laughed. She actually laughed and nudged him jokingly. And that was the moment something inside me snapped. Not loudly. Not explosively. But quietly, in a way that changes the entire trajectory of your life. I realized I was no longer her partner. I had become part of a game she was playing, a silent competitor in a race I never agreed to join. After the gathering, in the car, I asked her what that was about. Why she let him say that. Why she laughed at something that disrespected our marriage. She shrugged. She called it harmless. She told me I needed to stop acting like I was competing with her friends. I reminded her that I was not competing with anyone. She was the one creating that competition. And then she said the words that finally broke everything: maybe if you stepped up a bit, you wouldn't feel threatened by them. I could not believe it. She had turned this into a comparison. She had placed me on a scale next to men who were quite literally hovering around her with clear intentions. And she expected me to fight for her attention like I was just another admirer. The silence that followed us home that night felt heavier than anything we had lived through as a couple. She went to bed without another word. But I stayed awake, sitting on the couch, staring at the floor, letting the truth sink in. It was never about friends. It was about validation. She needed to feel wanted by as many men as possible. And she enjoyed putting me in a position where I had to prove myself, to show I was good enough. I realized that no amount of love from me would ever beat the thrill she got from being chased. In the days that followed, nothing got better. She kept chatting with them, meeting them, laughing with them, soaking in their attention. And every time I tried to talk, she dismissed me. Every attempt I made to remind her of our marriage, she brushed away with sarcasm or irritation. It felt like she was drifting further by the hour. One night, after another argument where she accused me of being insecure and paranoid, I finally understood something important. She did not want a partnership. She wanted an audience. She wanted men lined up, giving her constant reassurance that she was desired. And I was done being part of that show. So the next morning, while she was still asleep, I quietly packed a bag. I left a simple note on the table. Not to hurt her. Not to punish her. But because I no longer recognized the woman I had married. The note said that I loved her once, deeply, but I would not live in a relationship where I was expected to compete for her attention. I would not share my wife with every man who made her feel special. And I would not fight for someone who treated my love like something to measure against the flirtations of her friends. When she woke up and read the note, she called me repeatedly, but I let the phone ring. She had spent months showing me that I was replaceable. That I had to earn a place in her life among her admirers. That I was just another option in her circle. But the truth she never expected was simple. I may love deeply, but I refuse to beg. I refuse to compete. And I refuse to stay in a marriage where my worth is determined by how jealous I can get. She thought she could keep me and her guy friends in a competition forever. Instead, I walked away first. If you want, I can also prepare a thumbnail prompt that follows all your preferences for continuity and character description.